Hello everybody, Joel Tadman here from Golf Monthly and welcome along to Burghley Park Golf Club where, as you can see, I'm lucky enough to have my hands on the new Mizuno JPX921 irons. There's 4 of them and I'm going to be giving them a really thorough test today. Arguably more thorough than I've ever tested irons before because I really want to understand exactly what these irons are about. So we're going to test them on the launch monitor here at Burghley Park. We're going to take them out onto the par 3, hit some shots with these clubs as well using Titleist Pro X golf balls to really gain a clear picture as to kind of the ball flights, the distances and the feel and sound you can expect from these irons. If you want to find out more, do go on the Golf Monthly website. But Mizuno are making the biggest amount of claims with the forged iron. They're saying this is where you're going to see the biggest gains in performance because they've used the chromoly material we saw with the hot metal in the prior generation into this iron. It's a fully forged head and they've made the face 0.5 mil thinner. Doesn't sound like much, but that should give you a lot more speed and a lot more launch off the face. And as a result, Mizuno strengthened the lofts here slightly, 1 degree stronger than the prior generation. And that is also the case with the hot metal and the hot metal pro, both down at 29 degrees, so 1 degree stronger. That hot metal pro is just giving you a slightly more compact shape compared to the hot metal. So if you still want distance, but you want it in a more compact, refined package, that's the option to go for. And you've got the forged at 31 degrees in the 7 iron, the tour at 34 degrees in the 7 iron. Right, so let's just touch briefly on the looks of these Mizuno JPX921 irons. I think the shelf appeal has definitely improved. You could argue the 919 irons were a little bit too understated in certain areas, certainly the tour model, but they've definitely kind of improved that with these irons. A little bit more black paint fill on the back, consistent across all 4, but there are some differences there. Tour being the most compact down behind the ball. I love the look of this club, minimal offset, thin top line, definitely an iron I could play in terms of the looks of it. When you transition into the forged iron, and what I would say about this club is that definitely some bigger changes have been made here in terms of the way this club looks. It actually looks a lot closer to the tour iron, so it's not that much bigger. It's definitely got a thicker top line, but much more compact than the prior generation forged iron. And then you've got the hot metal and the hot metal pro, definitely a step up in terms of the kind of sizing of the club, and it's actually relatively difficult to tell the difference between the hot metal and the hot metal pro. You could argue the hot metal pro does have a slightly thinner top line. Sole width looks actually pretty similar. Maybe the hot metal pro does have a slightly narrower sole, but I was expecting the difference between the two to be a bit more drastic, but I guess they don't want to tread on the toe of the forged iron in terms of that more compact game improvement club. So some key differences there in terms of the looks. Let's take them onto the range, hit some shots on a launch monitor, just to get some kind of initial ideas about how these irons perform and what the differences are between these 4 and also some of the older generations to see if there's performance gains to be had. So let's just touch on the data we got here on the range at Burghley Park Golf Club. And worth pointing out, I did actually use the FlightScope X3 launch monitor for this test, not because we're switching launch monitors deliberately, but because that was the only one that was available to us in the short window that we had to test these clubs. But it's pretty good actually because it normalizes for weather conditions and also the range balls we're using. So it should give us really accurate numbers in terms of how these irons are flying and performing. We also had these irons in exactly the same spec, Dynamic Gold 120X100s, slightly longer than standard. And there were some big surprises actually. I'm going to flash the data up on the screen now, and I think you'll agree this wasn't what I was expecting in terms of the performance. Just picking out some of the highlights, I've made a note here on my phone. You know, the biggest surprise was how the hot metal pro is actually the fastest ball speed, also lowest spinning and higher launching than the hot metal. The hot metal was still the longest of the 4, but only just, and it was surprising also to see the new forged model be the lowest spinning and the lowest flying in terms of that trajectory. Now, interestingly, other comparisons from prior generations, I noticed that the new forged model had basically exactly the same ball speed as the old model, which was surprising given the lofts have been made 1 degree stronger. But it was higher launching, so that is also a bit of a surprise. The new model also did spin 500 RPM lower, but you would expect that given the stronger lofts and the changes in technology. And the carries were very similar. And finally, the hot metal irons, I tested 3 hot metal irons from 3 different generations, 900 to 919 to 921. And even though the lofts have got progressively stronger by 1 degree each time, I saw a bigger jump from the 919 into the 921 compared to the 900 into the 919. So some interesting findings, I think you'd agree, but I think it's time to kind of put them into play out on the golf course. So let's go and hit some shots. We've got the par 3 here, the 9th hole at Burghley Park Golf Club in Stamford. It's 172 yards to the pin, which is in the middle, so should be able to get a good kind of range of distances from the 4 different models, kind of shorter the pin and maybe longer the pin as well. That's what we're expecting anyway. I've got 10 balls lined up with the 4 new models and also the old forged version. I'm going to see exactly how that compares to the new version. We're all ready to go. Let's hit some shots and see where they finish. It's all over it. Be the club. God. Nearly pitched in the hole. Oh, it's a bit skiddy. Oh. That's a pretty good hit, straight at it. Right, okay, so we come up to the green. Let's have a look at the balls, where they've finished and which ones have finished where. So I guess the first one I'm kind of coming to here, this is, oh look, that's a tall one. So I think I didn't quite strike that. I guess this just shows, you know, if you don't quite strike it, you will lose out a little bit on forgiveness with that tour model, but it's for the kind of best players. So what have we got here? So you can see here we've got 2 short. This is a Forged 19 model, and this one is also a Forged 19 model. So 2 of those short of the green, and then there's a couple, what, three here, kind of front edge and front fringe in front of the green. So it'll be interesting to see. So that's the tour model as we would expect it to be short of that pin from that distance. So we've got 2 short on the tour. That is the Hot Metal Pro. I didn't strike very well, leaked a bit. But this one, just short of the pin, is the Forge 21 that I hit quite well. So, you know, quite a good distance there. You're looking kind of 3-4 yards there. It's very similar strikes. Just goes to say maybe in a real world environment, that new Forge model is just giving it a little bit more speed, a little bit more distance, and a slightly stronger flight, I would say. Pretty sure this is the Hot Metal. Yes, this is the Hot Metal that I struck pretty well, and it's not quite got pin high, which is interesting because you look at this one here, look where it pitched. Oh, so close to a slam dunk ace. But anyway, this is the Hot Metal Pro. You can see there. Now, admittedly, struck that very well, but has gone 4 or 5 yards longer than the Hot Metal. And over here, what's this one? Okay, so this is the Hot Metal, and this one actually one I leaked a bit right, and it's still gone a little bit further than the Hot Metal Pro. So in summary, not much difference in terms of kind of distance with that Hot Metal and the Hot Metal Pro. Looked like actually the Hot Metal was giving me a slightly higher flight from the tee off the deck we were hitting. Forge model looks like there is a bit of an upgrade there in terms of distance and feel as well. Tour model, very consistent. Both of those shots went a similar distance, but was a little bit shorter than the other models, as you'd expect given the lofting of it. Ooh, I don't know, Tour model definitely looks the best, but Hot Metal Pro was pretty easy to hit and looks pretty nice as well. So food for thought, I think. So hopefully you enjoyed that review of the Mizuno JPX921 irons. 4 very good irons from Mizuno. Tour model, it's difficult to say whether it feels softer than the previous generation. I wouldn't say there was much in it. Definitely has a quieter sound to it, more of a muted kind of thud sound at impact that I really liked. Really impressive option for the lower handicapper. I think they're really going to like the look of this club, and also how it performs. Very consistent. Doesn't have the most amount of forgiveness, but there's still an element of help there, I think, on those slight mishits. Is a really nice balance for me. But the Forged model definitely surprised me in terms of, you know, what it was offering. It definitely has the widest appeal of all 4. You see kind of low to mid handicappers, all the way up to high handicappers using an iron like this, because it does offer the best of everything. It seems to be giving me a slightly more speed and distance compared to the prior generation. And I was surprised at how much the look of it appealed to me, because yeah, that does actually look like an iron I could play. As a golfer that's 5 handicap and not getting any better, maybe you should start thinking about transitioning into an iron that's going to give me a little bit more help, but still doesn't look chunky. And actually that Forge model really does tick a lot of boxes visually for me. The sole's a little bit too wide, but you know, definitely something I could potentially play in the longer irons. And then Hot Metal Pro, very easy to hit. I think that's the thing that really stands out with these 2 clubs. We saw with that Hot Metal Pro shot I hit that nearly went in the hole. Just so goes to show, you know, how kind of stable they are, forgiving they are, and how well they feel off those centered hits. You know, off really good strikes, you're going to be rewarded with a really strong ball flight. And you know, across all four of these models, the thing that really stands out is that these aren't low spin clubs. These are traditionally spinning clubs with kind of modern loft. So it's a really nice combination actually to see these irons spinning at, you know, no less than 5,500. You see a lot of distance irons, especially ones lofted at 29 degrees, spinning at 4,500. But Mizuno have maintained that traditional performance because they want you to be able to stop the ball on the greens, which is why we really wanted to test these clubs in a real world environment, hitting into a green versus on a launch monitor, because these irons are all about how they perform on the course. And that high spin should give you better control of your iron shots in terms of the ball not running away from you when it lands. So it's a very thoughtful offering from Mizuno. There's clear differences between the four in terms of the looks, the feel and the performance. Certainly when you're looking at the Hot Metal and the Forge model, a little bit more speed there to give you a little bit more distance. And if that's what you want, definitely think about trying these Mizuno JPX921 irons. I've been very impressed. As I always recommend with Mizuno, you go for that custom fitting process. They always do a very good job. With that shaft optimizer, kind of recommending a shaft for you based on 3 swings should give you a really good idea as to kind of the head that works best for you and the shaft that's going to match that. So hopefully you enjoyed this review. Do like the video if you like what you're watching, and comment in the video as well. Tell me which one you're most excited to try. But for now, from Burghley Park Golf Club here in Stamford, it's goodbye from me. I'll see you next time.